Rabbi said tonight's Zera Shimshon Shiur is sponsored. Le'ilay Nishmas, Sheftel Yikasil Ben Chaim Hillel Olav Shalom, whose yahrzeit is coming up on the 22nd of Shvat. We're Zeicha Baruch Hashem to have his son here. Him and the family shall be oile, should be malad in the neshama of the Tata Zechreina Levracha. Our Shiur of the Zera Shimshon should be Le'ilay Nishmasei. Ali Yidna Yeshua, and I want to thank Torah anytime for publicizing these shiurim. I know that their big event, their annual fundraiser is coming up in a couple of weeks. And if you do want to donate to Torah anytime, put it on this page, the one that's linked to us, please. Okay, Zuk de Heilig, we're going to do Zera Shimshon Tafshin, Parshas Yisro, Kabbalah Satira, letter Chaf. This week's Parsha, the Torah Kedosha says that the Eibishter came down to Har Sinai to give us the Torah. The Zera Shimshon begins with a medrash in Koheles, L'chol zman ve'es. L'chol zman ve'etz, l'chol chayfetz. The medrash expounds on the pasuk in Koheles that says that everything that happens in this world, especially the big things, have a specific time when they're destined to happen. Let's read the lashon of the medrash, but the Zera Shimshon always gives us a snippet. So let's do the entire medrash. Here's how the medrash goes. I'm reading it to you. L'chol zman ve'et. Zman haya la'adam harishon. There was a time when Adam Harishon was placed in Gan Eden. She yikanes leGan Eden, shenemer vayinicheu beGan Eden. Obviously, this is probably one of the most important acts of creation. The world was created for Adam, and Adam was placed in Gan Eden. There's a specific time for that. Uzman hayaloi sheyetze misham. And when the Zman was for him to leave was also not random. Shema vayigarish es Adam. Zman hayaloi l'noich sheyikanes l'teva. There was a Zman that Noach should go in, like it says, Boyer l'teva, Zman hayalot seis ben ateva, and the time to come out. Zman hayal Avram shinasan lo hamilo. Shenem avatas brisi tishmar. Uzman hayal lebanav lihimoil. And there's a zman for their children, for his children to get a bris milah. And then he says, the l'chol, the eis l'chol chayfetz tachas hashamayim. Zman haya shetinosan atayra Yisro. That's where the Zera Shimshon. So at the end of this medrash, after talking about Adam, Noach, and Avraham, he then says, page Tafshin, then he says, a Zman was special for the Torah to be given. Amar Rev Beibai. Zman haya la'oisai davar shahaya nosan lemala min hashamayim va'achshav yeh nosan lamata. Something that was meant to be on top now comes down on the bottom. Vezuzu Torah. Shenema ve'daber lekim es kol advar ma'ela lemar. That moment is already mentioned and hinted to in the beginning of creation. All of us are familiar with the Rashi. Right, the Rashi, Vayerev, Vayivoker, Yoim Hashishi. Yoim Hashishi. Rashi says it doesn't say hey in any of the other days. It says Rivi'i Chamishi Sheni. It doesn't say Hasheni, Hashlishi. It does say Hashishi. Hey means to say like a davar yadua, something well known. It wasn't just this day, Vayerev, Vayivoker, it was morning and it was evening, Yom HaShishi. Rashi says in the beginning of Bereshis that the whole world, the whole existence of humanity was totally in this moment. If Yisro will be mekabel the Torah, the world will become a firm reality. The world will be established. And if not, the world goes back to there's no purpose, right? The world will disintegrate. There will be no purpose in the world. So this man is one of the most important times. As I state, and this is this medrash as well. Yesh ledaktik. Asks the Zera Shimshon, Ma bo lelamdeinu. What is the message here? Im HaKadosh Baruch Hu noisna pshita, there's a zman shetinase. Of course, if the Eibusher is doing it, of course there's a time. What is the message of the Medrash, asks the Zera Shimshon. What is the uniqueness? Umatzinu, so the Zera Shimshon gives us a string of midrashim to answer this question. And this is Rabbi Sai, as you will see, so noigeya to us, especially our dar before the coming of Mashiach. Watch what the Zera Shimshon says. Matzanu medrash yalkut. Anoichi Hashem Elokecha. Lama loinemru aseres hadibris betchilas haTorah. Why didn't the Torah begin with aseres hadibris? That's a kasha many people have thought of. Torah should begin, Anoichi, right? As a matter of fact, if I may say, the truth is that Anoichi is a little bit of a beginning, isn't it? Remember the medrash that says the Eibusher was thinking about which letter to begin the Torah with? Started with the letter Taf and worked its way down, Shin, Reish, Kuf. Remember that medrash? And every single letter was given a chance and every one was passed. Until it came to the letter Beis. And the letter Beis, the Eibusher said, Beis is with bracha, Beis is the right letter, Bereshis, you're the winner. And the Gemedrash says the Aleph was sitting by the side, gurnish gezukt. The Aleph said nothing. And then the Eibusher said, why are you so quiet? He said, I didn't get a chance. He says, don't worry, I have something special for you. Anoichi is going to start with Aleph. The Bria will start with Bereshis, but the Sibas HaBria, the reason for the Bria, will start with the Aleph. So the Anoichi, in a sense, is a shtickle beginning. Asks the Medrash, the Yalkut, so start with Anoichi. Why start with the Beis instead of start with the Aleph?
You're talking about after he created the world, or mamash at the beginning before Bereshis?
Well, he needs a nation to give the Torah to.
Right. So
the Torah should begin. It's not, the Torah isn't just a history book. The Torah is also, it is the Torah. So therefore, the question is, let it start with that episode, and we'll figure a way out to fill in all the rest. Okay? Then we can ein muktam u'mu'ucher b'Torah.
After the
We'll
first
put in,
Aliyah.
right, the base, the first aliyah will be a noichi. That's right. Vaydaber l'kimas kol advar me'elan, it'll be a noichi, and then afterwards we'll do the fill-ins later. Says umatzanu b'medrash, a noichi lama loy nemra aseres adibis b'tchilas haTorah. Answers the medrash as follows: Moshel ma'adavar daim el melech shenichas a Medina. A melech comes into a Medina. He says, Emloich aleichem. I am going to be your king. I would like to be your king. Amruloi. The nation, and if you look at the medrash, it's a shtickle chutzpah. Amruloi. Klum asisa imanu toiva shetim aleinu. How do you deserve to be our king?
Ooh.
That's what they say back. That's what the medrash says. The people. Ma asa. So what did the melech do? Bana lehem chayma. He built them a wall. Hichnes lahem means he built them protection. Hichnes lahem mayim, gives them water. Asu lahem milchames, wages wars for their benefit. Then amra lahem emlech aleichem. You want to know, like we say in English, what have you done for me lately? So the Eibusher goes ahead, this mashal, this king, performs many good deeds, sustains them, gets rid of their enemies, protects them, and then says, I'd like to be your king. And of course, they then say, hein, hein, yes, yes, by all means, of course. Kach, hoitzi HaKadosh Baruch Hu es Yisro miMitzrayim, kora lehem es hayam, hoirid lehem es hamon, higiz lehem es haslav, hera behem es haber, a be'er. The Eibusher went, took him out of Mitzrayim, gave him the mon, put Anani HaKavod, gave him a be'er. helped fight against Amalek, vayechlesh as Amalek, etc., etc. Amar lahem emlech aleichem, amar lahem hin. So says the Medrash, why is the Aseres Hadibris not in the beginning? Because in order to make the Aseres Hadibris, in order that there should be a melucha and an acceptance of the Aseres Hadibris, we need things to happen first. We need that the Eibishter shall have created the world, take us out of Mitzrayim, give us benefits, and then, so this is why Anoich is not at the beginning. Rabbi Omer l'idea shvachan shal Yisro. I want to tell you another reason. Shekeshamdu kulam b'nei Har Sinai lekabel Torah, when they all came, hushvu kulam libam echad lekabel malchus shamayim besimcha. They all accepted it with happiness. That's what Rebbe says. So again, the Zera Shimshon began, we said a number of things. He began with, what's the first medrash in Koheles that tells us there's a special time? What's the message? He says, I want to quote a different Yalkut. The Yalkut says, why doesn't it start with Aseres Hadibris? Because the Eibishter gives us a mashal, because he wants to show us that in order for us to accept the kingship of Hashem, we need to be able to appreciate the Eibishter, and then we'll be mekabel the Malchus, right? Umalchusai berotzain kiblu aleihem. We want it to be berotzain. A memshala, which a moishel, is a dictator. The Eibishter wasn't looking to be, although he could be a dictator, ki Hashem hamelucha umoishel bagoyim. Whether the goyim wanted or not, he's a moishel. But with the Eibishter and Klal Yisrael, he wanted a melucha. Kablani, be mekabel. Right? My malchus. Be mekabel. So therefore, the Eibishter didn't start right away with Anoichi. The Eibishter had it coming afterwards. Now, Rebbe says, and to tell us the shevach of Klal Yisrael, mekabel keish echad b'leiv echad. But the question, says the Zera Shimshon, is, but what are they arguing about? And according to Rebbe, how did he answer the question of why it's not in the beginning? The Rebbe seems to be just adding another point. Let me wrap this all up, says the Zera Shimshon, with the following point. Aval Isa b'Yalkut. The Yalkut says, Li Eitza v'Seishia. Ad shalai nivra ha'olam nisayis HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'Torah. The Eibishter would ask and consult, so to speak, and red zich durch with the Torah. Shishma ad shebetayrish sheshama toishia. Livrei says soilam. There would be keilu a help. Torah, what do you say about creating the world? Hashiva amalei rabbeinu olamim. Im ein tzva lamelech, or im ein machne lamelech, al meh hu melech. If there's no nation, how are you a king? It's fascinating. The Eibishter has everything, except in the way he created the world. If there's no am, there's no melech. Ein melech b'li am. You know, I once heard Rabbi YY said, b'shem my Rebbe. I didn't hear it, but it was the last shiur Reb Moshe Shapiro Zechron Levracha gave, I think, in his life. It was here in Shiners. It was a Shalosh Shudas, and it was right before Rosh Hashanah. He was nifter on Asara B'Teves a few months later, and he went into the hospital right after Sukkot. So this was one of his last shiurim. He once said the most fascinating vart. He said the following. It says that you can't bribe the Eibishter. Why would you say you can't bribe the Eibishter? Why would you say you can't bribe the Eibishter? Because he has everything, correct? But that would mean that if you had something that the Eibishter didn't have, you could bribe him. There is something you can bribe the Eibishter with. To be mamlech him, to coronate him. The Eibishter isn't Mekabel Shoichad because he has everything. But there's one thing that if you're willing to give the Eibishter, he's willing to accept it. And he'll be oimid from Kisei Hardin and sit in Kisei Arachmim. And that is the Eibishter, no matter what, we want you to be our king. When you say to the Eibishter, be our king, you're creating the malchus of the Eibishter. You're creating that malchus. And that he accepts, and he'll be oimid from Kisei Hadin and Yoshev Kisei Rachamim. And, Rabbi Sai, listen to this. The more tsaris a person has, and he's still mamlech the Eibishter, the more significant the melucha is. It's kind of easier when everything's going good. Parnasa, health, shidduchim. Yeah, the Eibishter is good. I love Hashem. But then you have somebody who never has tzoras. They're ill. Or they don't have parnasa. And they say, I'm mamlech the Eibishter. Really? And you got no tinus? Wow. Your hamlocha is far more significant. And you do it besimcha with your tsaris? Kol hakavod. You can do that. The hamlocha is even greater. Because lamrot, even though they have difficulties and they're having, but the Eibishter, you're still, nothing has changed in my relationship with you. That's a hamlocha. Okay? Now, says the Medrash, when the Eibishter asked the Torah, what do you think about Brias Ha'olam? So the Torah said to the Eibishter, if there's nobody praising you, Eze kavod shel melech. Where's your kavod? Says the Eibishter, you're right. I'm going to create the world. Why? Because this way we can come out a greater kvod shamayim, and I'll allow human beings to do it. And they'll be like shutfim with me in my malchus. V'ayin sham ala posuk omed vayimdad oretz. The Medrash continues in Chavakuk. Modad HaKadosh Baruch Hu called Doris. Now listen to this. This is the main event. Loimotza dor shero lekabel Torah k'maydar hamidbar. Of all the Doris, the Eibishter Omad Vayimad Oretz. The Medrash says over here, Modad HaKadosh Baruch Hu called Umais. He measured, he evaluated all of the nations. He found that the Jewish people would be the best and the most appropriate to get the Torah. And then he went through generation. And then he came to a conclusion. This is even though they eventually made the ego. And even though this dar eventually was boged and said, we don't want to go to Eretz Yisro, lamrot that, even though that had happened, they still were the most appropriate. They were still the most appropriate to be Mekabel the Torah. They were the dar of Moshe u'bnei Yisro. They were Moshe Rabbeinu. When Moshe Rabbeinu was nifter, where was he buried?
There was buried.
Where?
We don't know.
Where? Har Nevo.
You know where?
Where? Where is that? Eretz Yisrael? No, Chutz La'aretz. Why? Why was he buried there? Says the Medrash. Moshel Ma'adavar Doime. A fellow standing by the beach. He drops a couple of coins. They fall in the sand. Quarter, nickels, some dimes. Looks a little bit, trefnished. Okay? Look a little more, I don't find it. Yeah? Then a diamond falls into the sand. Oh, a diamond! He gets out a sifter, corners off the area, starts sifting away. In the meantime, he finds his money. He's not going to throw it. I found it all. No, he takes it away. Till he gets the diamond, he takes a lot of stuff. Says the Medrash Kach, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, every generation through the years of 40 years, Yidden died in the desert. A whole 600,000 died. And then the Eibishter buried Moshe Rabbeinu in the desert too. When I take out Moshe Rabbeinu, all 600,000 are coming out too. He's the captain of that generation. They're all coming out with him. The Tchias HaMesim, even though there's a machlokes in the Gemara and Sanhedrin, are they going to have a Tchias HaMesim, not going to have a Tchias HaMesim? According to this medrash, thanks to Moshe Rabbeinu, they're getting a Tchias HaMesim because they're going to get up with Moshe Rabbeinu. This door was unique, and it was the door of all doros that were zeicha to be makabel the Torah. Now, continues the Zera Shimshon. When he saw them all together, Im came. So it means that they were zoicha to be those who were going to receive the Torah. Im came. Iker bria so'ilam hoisa. Kedei liyas nikra melech. V'chol koidoi shal melech hu. And the covet of the melech is, what is a melech? What's a real king? A guy who sits in his palace and he doesn't see anybody, doesn't care, or the king that takes care of his nation, the king that takes care of them, feeds them, makes sure that everybody has what they need. Therefore, the Eibishter said, before I give them the Torah, I'm going to make sure that everything that they need shall be taken care of. Food, clothing, protection, enemies, v'chula. I'm going to put the protection, so to speak, before I say vayidaber lekim es kol advarim ha'ela. I'm going to make sure that Klal Yisrael is safe and secure. Therefore, they'll be mekabel me, and therefore they will not just be mekabel me. It'll the kabbalas HaTorah will be kvoid shamayim. That's the pshat in the medrash. So the reason that we don't start with Anoichi is because it wouldn't be a complete malchus, and the purpose of creation wouldn't be achieved if not for the fact that the Rebbeinu Shalom should make Kabbalas HaTorah the type of event that Klal Yisrael will want to be mekabel. That's what Rebbe says. You needed these people with this attitude. It was bashered for them, even though afterwards they messed up. But when they were there, ki ish echad b'leiv echad, they all went through Mitzrayim together, they left Mitzrayim together, and they were on the same page. That's what's going to happen when Mashiach comes. That's what's going to happen when Mashiach comes. When Mashiach comes, it's not coming to any generation. It's coming to the Dor that is supposed to be Dor Shel Mashiach. The way HaKadosh Baruch Hu L'chol zman v'chol eis v'chol chayfetz. When he put Adam Arishon into Gan Eden, when he took him out, when he put Noach into the Teva, and when he took him out, when he starts the world, and then when the world comes to its completion, all of this has a specific time with exactly the right group of people that need to be there at the Zman of Mashiach. That's our door. The door that's supposed to be Mekabel Mashiach is not a random door. It's the door that was meant to be Mekabel Mashiach. And just like in Yetzias Mitzrayim, Klal Yisrael had to go through the living Gehenna that they had to go through, unfortunately, until they were able to get to that Madrega. Anoichi Hashem Elokecha asher etzesicha me'eretz Mitzrayim mibeis avodim. They had to go through what they had to go through in order for them to become Vayichen Sham Yisrael Keneged Ahar Be'ish Echad. They were molded into the right generation. So too, our generation, whatever the people are going through, to be able to be Mamlech Hashem B'Simcha, And to do that is no small feat, especially when people have tzoros. These Yidden had been the Yidden that had backbreaking labor. They were the Yidden that Mitzrayim had whipped. They were the Yidden who saw children being thrown into the Yam. They were the Yidden that Paroi had bullied and Paroi had in Klal Yisrael had been trampled upon. And now they were the Yidden standing in front of the mountain. Ki ish echad belev echad, says the Eibusher, there is no other door like that. They're the ones who roll for Kabbalah Torah. Zogich, this generation, Be'ezras Hashem, is ro'ui and becoming ro'ui, to be mekabel pnei Mashiach. And that's what we have to want, to be mamlich him upon us. This Simcha, the way it was meant to be done, that the way it happened then, so too to do that now. That, says the Medrash, is the message, and that, says the Zera Shimshon, is the message, or one of the messages of Kabbalah Torah. So, me'ala zeichazayim be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach, that we should takabi and understand that when Mashiach comes, it's coming to the nation that is supposed to be and can only be, it's the Basherta nation for Kabbalah's Mashiach. And when it happens, be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach, we should be on that level to be able to be mekabel him as we were back then. Ki ish echad belev echad, because it's that achdus that is required so that Klal Yisrael could be zoicha to be brought up to a higher level. As long as we're mefuzer and mefayred, it won't happen. The achdus is what brings us together. So mezoiches and be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach bekarev mamish.